So, folks, thanks again for coming. I don't want to take any more time than I should. We've gotten done our logistics, done our orientation. The session is now being recorded, and Dr. Plum, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jerry. Um, uh, Thanks a lot for being here this afternoon. Let me get to spend time with you. I teach communication for a living, and we talk a lot about listening exercises. And so, anytime anyone is willing to listen, I realize they're spending some cognitive energy on me, and so I appreciate you listening. I don't have on purpose a prepared set of things for us to go through. I am happy to pull up all sorts of stuff. If no one has anything that you want to look at together or talk about, I can take it over and do stuff and talk about course design and course assignments and those sorts of things. How many of you were here this morning when I gave away the QR code to the assignment conversion set? Person. If anybody's interested in that, I can talk about that in a minute. Put it back on the screen. We can walk through that. I wasn't sure who was going to be in which sessions, and because it looked like different groups and stuff, and so I don't mean for there to be overlap for people that were here at a different one. And so, um, is there? I guess what I was curious about to start with, because I wasn't sure who exactly was going to be here, is what you're hoping to for us to do together. What would be, or may I phrase that, what would be exciting and interesting for you for us to do together and meet your expectations or exceed them for our time?
There's an question.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, we hear about AI-proof assessments. I'd be curious about your take on AI-proof assessments.
I don't know. You mean apart from sitting down and writing an exam and that kind of stuff? Um, I don't have a good answer for that. And I have asked a lot of people that question. I think in the last, were you here when I was telling you that I talked to that dean of 6,000 online master students, and he said, "We're doing it badly." Um, I haven't heard anyone say anything different than that. I I understand how we can do assessment in person, with a degree of confidence that they're taking the test and they're right. I struggle with the online space a lot. Um, and we've tried all the things that a lot of other people have tried with proxy cameras, dual cameras and proxy systems and all that kind of stuff. And it's just so easy to get around some of those things. And so that's one of the reasons that I've had at Coastal, we've really pivoted to AI enabled assessment and AI involved assessment stuff, and trying to change the narrative from uh, excluding AI to how can we utilize AI in the measurement process. Um, and the like some of the assignments that I was talking about earlier. For example, the fact that the students have to create those online videos where they're able to explain, even if they're using AI to explain all that stuff and put it all together, there is a level of ownership of the content that's being put there and stuff. And so, um, but it's tough. It's really hard, especially online. Do you teach online?
No, in person, but it's actually hybrid.
Mm. Um, and I'd love to know if somebody knows of somebody that's doing a really great assessment. Um, I can tell you some of the things that I've done that I've liked, but I don't have confidence that they're bulletproof. Um, so I use those interviewers a lot. I think you guys probably saw some of the debaters, interviewers, and those sorts of things that gauge the students on topics, and um, telling them that they're going to be required when they get to class to account for what they did with the interviewer has been an effective way to encourage them to engage and think about stuff in a way that they would be held accountable for. It's not a great measurement tool, but it's gotten to the place where when they get to class, we're further ahead and can do some measurements during class time. I told you about the writing the papers, that kind of stuff. I just don't know of great ways to do it online, and I'm concerned also that we're moving toward use of AI that doesn't involve point in time assessment, that involves process assessment, and that the students are not getting snapshots like you took a test on Tuesday and you got your score, that it is me popping into the agent they're using to see where its assessment of their mastery is on it through the engagement at the level of questions, the time spent, its ability to do those kind of assessments and stuff. And um, I would not be shocked if AI was better at assessing student knowledge than I was at lots of things. Matter of fact, that probably makes sense when I think about it. Um, so I know that's a terrible answer for your question, but I, I, I don't know anyone doing it well. And I would, that's one of the questions that I had for LMS companies. I went to D2L, I went to Canvas, I went to a couple of other ones and zoomed in with a few others. And what I wanted to know, we're replacing our LMS at Coastal. What I wanted to know is what are the tools that you're working on that in all of 27, when we bring up this new LMS, are going to be the ones that we're using to online measure online stuff. And none of them had a good answer. I mean, they had answers, but they were tools that I didn't have any confidence were actually measuring knowledge. So I don't know. Sorry.
Apologize.
Any other, I mean, we could look at some stuff. I can go through some Notebook LM things since you guys are about to roll that out. I can talk about how I use that in courses. We can talk about, I can show you some the AI assignment stuff that I use. Happy to do other things or talk about Career Center things. If there's some,
You can go through the tools.
so let me talk about, and again, I don't know who was here for the other one, and so if this is a repeat for some of you, I apologize. I want to talk about the way that I use Notebook LM a good bit, and I want to show you one aspect of it. And I know you're getting Notebook LM. I believe it's in the next couple weeks. That was what the IT people told me. So let me get up on here. Let me show you a couple ways that I use it. So let me start out by talking about a problem that I have. And one of the things I mentioned in a talk yesterday was I asked the question, is it potentially unethical to not teach students how to use AI? And I'm not trying to say that we're doing something unethical if we're not teaching students. I'm just asking, is it possible that the world they're going into, both career-wise and as a human being, as a citizen, that we may be doing them a disservice? And so part of that was trying to talk about a problem that I have, and this is going to get to teaching this class. One of the problems I have is that I'm overwhelmed with information. I'm already at information overload. I have been for a long time. And I need tools to help me stop drowning in the flood of information. Every day, someone walks into my office and tells me something that that just happened that I didn't know about, and I think, gosh, I should have been aware of that. And so Notebook LM is one of the tools that I use to do that with. And it's also one of the tools that I help the students manage information. And that's what it is for me in a large way, is an information management system. And it's a really clever move on Google's part. They realized pretty early on that giving people just full access to a chatbot is great, but if you can show them, if you can build the system that uses it to help them see, that's even better. And Notebook LM's been around for about a year or so. And so I'm going to go ahead and go to it. Like I said, I believe your access inside MSU, it's coming in the next week or so. You have access to it free. And so if you forget everything I talk about school stuff and just want to use it for your own purposes, your own Google account, you can get access to this completely free. I never use anything private in Notebook LM, even with a paid one. I don't have a use for that and an interest. I don't trust the Google. Don't train off with my data. I want to check that box. I mean, sound cynical, but I just don't want to risk. And so I don't use it for any of that kind of stuff. Let me show you how I use it first and then talk about how I apply it to the class. So the example I gave a moment ago about being overwhelmed with information, every week I create multiple notebooks. And when you hit the create notebook, it's going to give you an opportunity to do like two different paths, really. One of them is putting information in there, and it takes an astounding array of file formats. Like, it's almost hard to find a file format that it won't take. And websites are when I use it for the most. News articles, I use lots of PDFs, those sorts of things. And you can, if you had to, just put text in there. But the top is a really interesting piece too that I overlooked to mention this morning in much detail. You'll see there's a fast research option, and I use this for living in a society where information is over my head all the time. For example, I have a daughter that has a disorder called EDS, Ehlers-Danlos. You may be familiar with it. I wasn't until she was diagnosed. And a couple weeks ago, we went to a medical school to meet with a geneticist, and we had 30-minute slot to meet with a geneticist. And I thought, man, I want to make the most of this. And so I went to ChatGPT and I said, give me a list, go find for me all of the tier 1 journals that involve genetics, medical journals that involve genetics. And so it found a bunch of journals I had never heard of in my life. I copied those. I went to this prompt right here and I said, I want you to find for me all of the journal articles from the last 5 years, medical journal articles related to Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and just limit your search to these top tier journals. And it did that, and it found, let's see how many it found. And I guess I didn't make this very clear. Like, I don't have any interest in that people know this. I'm just talking about the way that my relationship with information has changed, and Notebook LM is one of the ways that it's changed. And so you can see it found articles that found 20 something articles, 20 something sources. It validates all sources. So if you ask it to do one of those kind of searches, it'll go read everything on that website. If it can't access the site because of a paywall or something, it won't add it. I can go through and look at all of these and pick which ones I want, which ones I don't want. The middle section here is an interesting little option. This is the chat, and all of the chat is limited to those articles. And so if I ask a question or talk to it, like I think I went in here. See, I asked it. My daughter has ATDS. As her father, what are 10 specific ways I can help her? And just from those articles, it built out systems for helping her. And by the way, all of these were, I sat down with her and I said, let me read these to you. Every one of these are spot on. We were doing half a dozen of them already. But I also went over here and you can create, get that off. And minimize this. Yeah, great. You can create an enormous array of ways to receive this information. And I'm going to show you some of this with students in a minute. But for this purpose of this, I wanted a report, and I wanted something very specific from it. I told it to build me a report from all 21 of these articles, and down here at the bottom, I'll show it to you. Well, it's not letting me show you the bottom part down here. And so I told it to build a briefing document, and down here I explained that I'm a non-medical person who has a child that has this, build a report for me, and it built this report right here. And I told it as part of its briefing to give me, so explain to me as the parent, so I could be an informed parent, either a briefing document to inform a parent. And then I told it at the end, I wanted to provide for me a list of questions preparing for a consultation with a geneticist. And so it went through and gave me information about what to do when I was there with a geneticist. Some of you were here this morning when I was talking about a course that we're going to be offering next year at Coastal called Learning with AI. I am as interested in teaching my students how to do this sort of thing than I am the topic that I need to be teaching them in class. Because they're going to graduate into a world that is awash with information. Some of you saw the statistic that I showed yesterday. In 2010, the estimates are we were creating 2 petabytes of data a day, zettabytes of data a day, which is 10 bits of information for every grain of sand on the planet. That's an enormous amount of information that we were creating as a human race, 2 of those a day. In 2025, we believe it was 181 a day. And so just in those last 15 years, we've seen an exponential growth in data production, information production. And the belief is by 2030, the estimate is by 2030, it'll be around 1,000 a day, which is called a yottabyte. How do you live in that world? How do you swim dropped into the ocean of information that is our world because AI is now generating a lot of content, and so it's building speed. And that's one of the questions I had about, could it be unethical for me? And I'll say it for West Fonder. It's unethical for me to know the things I know and not show my students how to do that, and say, good luck in the world. And so I feel compelled to show them these sorts of things, just my conscience kind of thing. So this has changed the nature of how I interact with doctors, and it's changing the nature of the way the students interact with information. So that's where I want to get to the class part of it. Oh, I never showed you how I deal with it every week. Oh, I have another gift. I have a present for you. This is a discipline digest tool. And it's going to ask you what your discipline is. I would recommend being as specific as you could possibly be. And it's going to go, there's a 3-level harvest for you. It'll harvest tier 1 journals first, then it'll harvest tier 2 and everything below that together, and then it'll harvest the news. Then it'll take all that and it'll package it and put it into a digest for you with links that you can follow to go see that information. Now, the benefit of this is not the first time you use it, it's every time after that. Is the first time you use it, it's going to pull lots of information. The real benefit will be the second time you come in, because it knows it's you, and say, show me everything since the last time I logged in. And so what this is meant to be is a frequent pull of the information in your discipline from those areas. And I use this I have a couple of these I use every day that say, tell me everything, I missed a couple of days, tell me everything from the last 3 days that I've missed about, agentic AI, or give me everything I've missed since I was here last time about higher ed and AI or whatever. And if you haven't been there, it'll ask you a time frame so you can pick, the last 3 months or whatever. Well, one of the reasons that I use a tool like this for myself is because the vastness of the information, the ocean of information that I'm swimming in. So,
A chat with Gemini.
it doesn't say anything little.
I don't know if I'm.
Maybe, has anyone else tried to log into it?
Discipline digest. Is that what you're looking?
So you just want those, no? You, but yours don't show.
User error.
Oh, okay. Let me check. So I'll get some. I've got, of course, free comps online. I'm not sure. Oops. See then. Oh, it's right. Yep, you're right. Oh, nursing. That's great. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, let me pull back up Notebook LM. Figure this out. So the way I use it to, let's say, for example, that now you're getting a bunch of information from your discipline digest. That you're gonna want to try to keep up with. And I do this usually by weeks. Like you can see the one from last week. I traveled a lot last week, and so I didn't get to put a lot in last week's the weekly update that I did for myself. I'll show you an old one. There's one. There it is. There's the one that I use a good bit. So during that week, I came across a bunch of articles that I needed to keep up with. Imagine that you pull from your discipline a bunch of stuff, and you're thinking, oh yeah, because now what you have the ability to do is to harvest every day or every 2 or 3 days a bunch of information. Well, it is going to be exceedingly difficult to read all of that, I suspect, every day, to keep up with all the things that are coming out in those tier 1s and tier 2s and news and all that kind of stuff. And so what you can do is put them in a notebook. I do a weekly notebook. I do mine mostly from items that I come across when I'm browsing on my phone, or the curated sites that I go to, or whatever. And I dump them in there. Sometimes I have to create a PDF of them. It is just for that week. And sometimes I have multiple topics a week. And so I put them in that notebook, and I come over here and I hit audio overview. And I just realized, Jimmy, it's not gonna do sound, is it? Probably not. And so I customize what I'm about to get an audio overview for. This is how we got our new president up to speed at Coastal. We hired a new president that started July 1st. The transition team met with me and said, hey, is there some way that AI can help us get him up to speed? He's driving, 45 minutes a day to get here from where his house is. And I said, perfect. Just send me all the stuff that you want him to know. They sent me batches of, things about the political environment in South Carolina and the history of the university and sports. And I would create these, I would tell it how long to make it. I would tell it was for briefing a new president. I would tell him his name. I put a pronunciation guide in there because we have some weird names for our mascot. It's called the Chanticleer, which is weird. And so I put a bunch of that stuff in there for each one that I created, and I sent it to him, and he listened to them when he was driving back and forth to get up to speed on things that he would never have time to read. And so this is again a tool to solve an information problem. And so I usually create a deeper dive, and I get a little bit of instructions here. Make it 12 minutes because I have a 12-minute drive home, and I'm gonna listen to it on Friday to get caught up from the week. And it creates something like this.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we extract the most important insights from a stack of sources, giving you the shortcut to being well informed. Today, we're plunging into a topic that's reshaping our world at.
By the way, I use this with students a lot, where there'll be 3 or 4 articles that I know they're not going to read. Maybe MSU is different, but when I put the word optional by readings, that's a kiss of death a lot of times for the student to actually read them. But I can put those articles in that section of the course. By the way, every bit of this is shareable. You can share individual sections. You can share the whole notebook. You can share just the chat. I've done that a few times where I put a bunch of sources here and shared just the chat and said, if you want to ask questions about this, this is a place you can go, because it limits all of the knowledge to those articles that I put in there, and they can go interact with it. I can share all these things out by pieces. And so what I do is I put a few articles in there, and I go over and I give directions to the podcast. Hey, I want you to give a full overview of all of these. I want it to take 5 minutes. This is for students for this particular class. Make sure you mention that in there, and especially highlight the way these articles might be used in their final projects, which is about XYZ. And then it creates a podcast that does that, or an audio overview. And I like this next feature a lot when I'm listening to it in my car.
Well, an incredible pace. Artificial intelligence and education. We're going to oh, hey there, what's up?
Hey, I'm at Michigan State University with some faculty members that are doing course design. Adapt the entire podcast to be just about course design and AI.
That is a phenomenal idea.
Wow, hi, and thank you for chiming in.
We can absolutely focus on AI and course design
That's a great request, especially coming from MSU.
because the core of what we planned is actually about how AI fundamentally changes what faculty do.
Okay, let's unpack this with a
Yeah.
Yes, they really like it though when you talk about how it relates to Spartans and Spartan Ready and AI Ready and stuff. So please try to include a lot of Spartan analogies throughout the podcast.
Okay, let's go full Spartan mode.
Absolutely. Think of AI literacy as the shield and spear.
You can't just send a Spartan into battle without training.
Exactly. Our course design needs to make sure our Spartans are AI ready.
That's a fantastic analogy. We can definitely weave this into our discussion.
Okay, apart from being a thin little party trick, the way that I use this is that it's playing on my phone in my car while I'm driving home. I hit that button and I say, I don't understand what you just said. I don't know what conversational amplified prompt engineering is. Please explain that before you go forward. Or I put a big file. Sometimes I put a single big file in here, like a 70-page report I'm supposed to read. I've got a 30-minute drive to the airport. I put it in there. I'm driving. They start their podcast, and I realize this is talking about something that I don't really care about. So I hit the button and I say, hey, unless there's more in here about AI and higher ed, I don't think I'm interested in hearing all of the legal stuff. And they'll say, oh, okay, well, there's really only one other thing in here about that. And I can interact with them in a way that dynamically changes the podcast or newscast that I'm listening to. And I show the students how to do this too, because sometimes they don't want to have to skip through. They can just hit it and say, I already know about that, jump to the next thing, or I've already read that article. But this is one of the ways that helps me manage the ocean of information that I'm trying to swim through. And very often on Fridays, when I listen to these, I hear an article that I do need to read. Well, I have it right here on Monday. I usually make a voice note on Monday. Hey, on Monday, go read that article about agentic control at the IT level or whatever. And so I find this extremely helpful. Now, it is also very adaptive. And so let me show you the way that we use it with students. And we train every one of our freshmen at Coastal on how to use Notebook LM to do this. And so we'll pretend like a U.S. history class. So creating a notebook for that class for that week. And the students not only have access to the free version, as some of you saw this morning when I was talking about the way that companies are aggressively going after students, students can sign up for a year of free pro access, which gives them 300 notebooks a month. I think the free one is 30 a month or something like that. And so they can sign, it's a product, it comes with a subscription at the end of a year, and so they have to be careful. But I was talking this morning about what companies are just absolutely going after them, and they're getting it in their Insta advertisements, they're getting it in their YouTube. I mean, they're being aggressively pursued by these companies, and so it's very possible that some of them are already using Notebook LM. They take notes. They take them by hand. They take a photo of it and upload it. They do voice recording. They do typing on a laptop. However, they have the notes for that week. They upload the notes for that week and any other things that the teacher may have given, like an article or whatever. By the way, speaking of course design and AI, that may be something that you guys want to consider. And I don't think you guys have a policy on this already. You have a policy, university-wide policy on recordings, digital recordings of classes?
Video recording?
Up to the professor.
There is a language of it, so that's yes. There is a suggestion that faculty should make a statement in the class. Nothing prevent because the state of Michigan is not a dual consent.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So there has been case recently that students have reported, even posted on social media, or parents have used that. So I have worked with having this conversation over lunch. I have tried to put a documentation together to understand and educate people about the risks, and especially for risks associated with students. It has been this thing about we've got to deal with the case when it happens, then prevent from it. So there's no one rule, as far as I'm concerned. There's no one hardcore policy really.
So it's up to faculty to make faculty are encouraged to make a statement about if they have an opinion about or a position on it, they're encouraged to say that in syllabus. Is that right?
Yeah, they encourage to tell the students what the rules are for recording the class.
Cool.
We've had some because again, the state is not a dual consent.
We've had a problem at my university with students doing it without consent and without telling the faculty members, and we've had a lot of the problems we've had are the little digital recorders, like about the size of a credit card, and they can just hit a button on it, and they're AI enabled, and so they hit record and they drop it in their purse or leave it on the desk or something, 10 feet away, and they get a summary of the note. They get summary of the notes, a to-do list, all sorts of stuff. Because it's just recording that or actually sending it to the transcript to something else, and so it's another part of the crazy wild frontier that we're living in. I've had students. I was giving a talk at another university the other day, and the student had a soft drink in the class, and I didn't think anything of the soft drink, and then I realized she was doing that, and I was like, oh, okay, I know what's happening now, and I'm afraid sound bites, and something I say being taken out of context, and it being recorded without my consent and then being used. But we do have faculty that say it's completely okay to record my lectures. And we have students that have, at Coastal, we have students that have accessibility accommodations that allow them to record them and that sort of thing. So that fits in here too. However, they have notes for that week. They dump them into that week's notebook and then any other material, and they can chat with it if they want to or whatever. But what we encourage them to do is to go over to reports and create a briefing document. And then to give some instructions to that briefing document, like this one right here. This briefing document is not a summary, it's a compilation. It's taking all the things that are in the notes and combining them over here into about an 8-page report. So they have all of that week's material put together in that one spot. All of this is downloadable and shareable, all that sort of stuff. And so they do that for 4 weeks, then it becomes midterm time. And this is where the absolute magic happens. They take those multiple reports that you saw, They dumped them in there. So now they've got all the material from those 4 weeks in one spot, and they can go over here and they can create their own quizzes. They can create flashcards. In the reports, you may have noticed when I clicked on reports a minute ago, there are study guides. They can direct the kind of study guide. Dr. Twang said, really want you to focus on the underlying principles and not just the dates. Build me a study guide that really focuses on the underlying principles and not just the dates. They can select the difficulty level of the quizzes, and how the quizzes are designed and the kind of information that's in them, and they can build them out over and over and over again. They can also create their own, if they're an auditory learner or they prefer to listen while they're on the treadmill, they can create their own podcast that do things like I didn't show you some of the other ones. There are different types. Like maybe they want to hear a critical evaluation of something, and hear the two characters will play devil's advocate to each other, and you get to hear the debate that's going on. They can create videos, full video overviews. I think I have one of them down here. I don't. Oh, that's a mind map. I had a video. Quiz. Whoops, it's the quiz.
Yes. Mind if I ask a question?
Sure, please.
I know you had mentioned that you're on the journey of finding identifying a new learning management system. Don't you believe that this is better equipped to be a course shell or a course management system, a tool like that, and the learning management system, the traditional one? I know that not every faculty member is prepared to use such a thing, but I feel like the LMS is just digitizing materials. This has gone beyond digitizing materials.
I think so too. And it's one of the reasons that I was so interested in that. They really developed API system inside that one we talked about here on the board for. That was why I went to talk to them, was to find out what the development is like for embedding. I don't want to teach students how to use Insight or whatever, or Lumi, or what did I think that's the one you guys have, is Lumi. Is that the one that's inside D2L?
Oh, yes, not active here.
I don't want the students to learn that. I want them to learn the market tools that they're going to have to know when they go out. And so that's when I went to those LMS companies and said, tell me how I can embed the tools that I really want them to learn inside your product. And that was the reason that I liked that one so much. It's not the grade book and all that stuff, which I was really appreciative you told me that, but because they had 841 API partnerships already. And that's what I want, is I want to be able to go to the faculty and say, we pay for it, and we have Notebook LM is now inside this shell. If you'd like to be able to use that for your class, because we think it's a better tool and students need to know how to use it.
One of the things I'm wondering is on the role of hallucination with Notebook LM, especially when you have larger, like a lot of documents in a larger context. The curiosity I have is, if your university is officially sponsoring Notebook LM for students to use, in cases where Notebook LM hallucinates a wrong answer, how might that be adjudicated for, say, that wrong answer being replicated on a test?
So I haven't had that experience, because all of the information came from there. And so the hallucination would have to be a pretty unique thing for it to hallucinate from the knowledge sources that I gave it. It would have to leave the knowledge sources that I gave it in some ways, and it doesn't. It's capped at that. And so I haven't had the experience of it hallucinating with the kind of data knowledge that Spark knowledge role that I have there. I have had a problem, though, when I've done the deep research at finding an article that had bad information. And so what it came back to was me being more vigilant about verifying the sources. And so, I can be lazy. There's a couple times I ran a big thing and I was like, I got some weird information. I was like, where in the world? And then I went back and found out one of the articles wasn't what I thought it was. And so that came back on me. And the conversation we had at lunch, I have it in here. Uh, there it is. So this is a theory that I teach in one of my classes. And what I wanted to know a few months ago was, can I build a textbook chapter from the sources that are out available, publicly available information, like all of these are all academic journal articles that anyone can found on the internet. And what I wanted to know was, can it go find from the intro section of 30 different articles that explain the theory that they're about to go, can it go find and create the equivalent of a book chapter for me that I, as the expert, find to be correct? The answer was yes. Like, I was astounded how good this is a book chapter right here. And every bit, I read the whole thing. Every bit of the information in this was correct that it pulled from these, I don't know, 10 sources or something. And we had a conversation at lunch about how textbook companies are going to make it in the future. I don't know. This took me about 4 minutes to build this out. And now I have it in a format that I can, like Marcio was saying, they can chat with this book chapter. And they can build their own quizzes and study guides and stuff. And your question is so great too, because that's the heart of the AI and learning class that we're talking about, is verification of information. And the way that I talk about in my class is evaluating AI content, because part of what I bring to the table today, at least, is the ability to evaluate the content that AI gives and recognizing that's an important part. And I haven't really talked about this in any of my talks, but one of the problems with AI is that it reveals underlying problems that were there to start with. For example, laziness. Like, I talk about my own laziness. And so I see that in my students. And one of the ways that it shows up is an unwillingness to evaluate the content that AI gives, to just accepting, putting in the coins, pulling the lever, and taking whatever comes out and running with it. And so I have several exercises in my class just about evaluating AI content. Prompt writing. It takes discipline and critical thinking to become a good prompt writer, which is how you become a good partner with AI, is learning how to write prompt. At this moment, that's our interface. Our primary interface with AI is through prompt writing, and becoming a better at prompt writing makes you a better partner. And I've got stuff on advanced prompt writing that makes people, I hope, better. It makes me a better prompt writer, better partner. Selecting the right tool. This is another spot of laziness. I have so many students that just go to chat for everything, because it's easier than trying to think, is this the best tool for this task? And so lack of tool selection. This is, we talk, our AI literacy class, we talk about this. Part of AI literacy is knowing how to select the right tool. You wouldn't want a hammer for opening a doorknob. You wouldn't want a screwdriver for putting a nail in a piece of wood. Picking the right tool, knowing how to partner with that tool in an effective and safe and helpful way, and learning how to evaluate AI, the content that your partner gives you. And so those are three of the components of our AI literacy. And that last one takes a lot of effort, right? I mean, it's so easy when it reads an 8-page book chapter to not read the 8-page book chapter and say, that looks good. I scanned it. I did a power browse. Looks great. And then a student gives a question on an exam, and they're like, oh, shoot, where'd you get that from? Because I have 5 other students said the same thing. I'm like, that article you get, and that didn't happen, but I'm saying that's what it would look like, I'm sure. And so I haven't had that problem with this because it's so contained.
Building off of that, I mean, say you had students, I prepare for, is the Earth flat?
Okay.
Or is it a spheroid? And say you had a student who just put in a whole bunch of Earth is flat documentation. I mean, would Notebook LM flag that under a guardrail? I mean, it would create briefings and everything,
Yeah.
confirming the bias.
If they created that notebook, that's what that. And one of the ways I use this is I create the notebooks. I mean, I'm the curator, and that's one of the roles that I think is probably going to be more important for me in the future in my classes, is curating the right information for them to learn with. Matter of fact, we had a discussion earlier about curation as potentially another level at the top of Bloom's taxonomy. Like, dynamic curation. I had a conversation last week with another educator about that. I don't know. I hadn't thought about it long enough to have developed thoughts, but I curate what goes in there. And that's one of the things I like about Notebook LM is I create a wall and says, everything you do with AI, it needs to be contained to these articles right here. And it's using the LLM for logic. It's using it for language construction and those sorts of things. But its knowledge base is limited to these areas over here. And
I like that question because I think it speaks to like, will the LLM be reinforcing existing biases? And I was just overseas talking about AI with Association of Southeast Asian Nations. And one of the primary concerns there at that whole conference, which is not even on our radar here, was kind of cultural autonomy. And that these LLMs are all very Western centric, very Northern Hemisphere centric. And all of their responses are trained on and then informed by all of those kind of pre-existing biases. So it's interesting, like if you're building your own little agent or your own little custom gem or GPT, you're putting in biases already into it. And then that's overlaid on top of this broader systemic bias that's built into the system.
Well, you know, it's one of the reasons that DeepSeek caught people's attention was because, you know, I'm scared of DeepSeek,
and so I don't use it. And I'm with the State Department on that one. I think it's probably validated. But it was one of the things that caught their attention was that it was primarily not trained in the same way. It definitely wasn't trained on the same hardware and the same tech. And so, yeah, it'll be real interesting to see what some of the global LLMs look like. Mistral is still Western, even though it's at France, but it's less American. So yeah. Yeah. And so anyway,
STEM students, when you create them, it's a technical question. I don't know the answer. We will soon release something similar to this here at campus, right? The question is, when you create your own environment for students to play with and learn with, can the student take the content away and take it within or migrating to their own personal notebook?
so I can pick when I share. Let's see.
You as a instructor, you had control that. So you can decide share with themselves.
The problem is that I don't know
The export code.
I don't know what your enterprise one is.
Oh, I see.
I know for this one, I can restrict to them just viewing, but the problem is or a problem in this is that I only use public documents for this or documents that are not private or whatever. Now the student may put their own notes and stuff in one of these, but for my purposes, for in class, those are articles that it pulled offline that are online and I don't have control of them either way. And I've never put anything in the Notebook LM that was private in any way. And so I wouldn't be sure. I haven't shared anything that needed to be protected. And I don't know that, like if I was a faculty member that had research I wanted to share with a student that was proprietary research, I wouldn't put it in. I mentioned earlier, I don't trust they're not training foundation models. For this version, your protected version may be something different, but I do think you'd lose. They'd be able to copy it, and they could ask for a report of it. And, you know, if you share it, like right now, this is the share button for the entire notebook. That's the share button for the whole notebook. Most of the time, what I end up sharing are the sections, like
So as a faculty member, you have control buttons that you can control what they can export or not.
you. For my version, you do. I don't know about the one that you guys are about to get. And I do sometimes just share out their reports and stuff. Where it is section studio. And they get pretty creative with it. I've been interested in the way the students interact with it some too. They are totally comfortable. They use it inappropriately too. Like the thing I was talking about the hammer, about using a hammer to open a doorknob and stuff. They get a hold of one of them like, ooh, audio. And then they do use audio for all sorts of things that audio is not a very good use for of it. Or the mind map. Like, you can build mind maps. And I'm like, oh, great. What are you using it for? Everything. And like, does that helpful? You wouldn't believe it. Creates mind maps for, and I realized they're just not great at the thing I was talking about, learning how to use a tool, pick the right tool for the right task, and say, we talk about this in COM about communication tools. People are often not very good at looking at a tool and saying, what is that tool good for and what is it bad for? A perfect example, my university is email. That is a hammer that they hit too many things with, and they're like, oh, email, which is an email, like that sort of thing, and not asking, is this the best tool for this message? And so the students do that too with this, which is part of the learning process. Anyway, so I used it for content delivery for students. I use it for exposing them to articles and things that I think they might find interesting or need to know for later in the semester. I was going to show you. I forgot what it was now. So that's just a tool. Notebook LM happens to be my favorite right now, but it's a wonderful tool for. I showed you how I keep up every week, and I have some categories that I just dump things into on a regular basis, like oh, this is one of your students. Yesterday I was trying to show how we can do research for you. One of your doctoral students was doing research on the toxicity of PBDEs and whatever. And so we went and told it to just pull articles from the last 3 years, some tier 1 journals related to the toxicity of this thing. And we're talking about using it to build lit reviews, and or at least to start the process of lit review and finding and stuff. And one of the problems we do have, though, that I haven't mentioned, is that it does not have access. It doesn't have full access to all the journals, and it's one of the things that the library software, the library services has an advantage on. That if you have Cite AI or one of the Lexis tools or some of those other ones, they have all of the articles, and so they can pull from it. And so I was trying to talk about the way you could do that to get yourself started, but you'd want to go to the academic library section to get the real articles. Okay. Let's see. This goes to. Oh, it doesn't have an end time. Does this go to 2:30?
Yes.
Okay, great. So in the last 5 minutes, I would love to either hear some ways that you guys are using it or using AI. I love learning that kind of stuff. Or if there's any other thing that I didn't cover you were hoping we could talk about, I'm happy to do that. Or I can step out and you guys can talk to Marcio about stuff or whatever. Are there any?
I would say with the guardrails, I didn't quite believe you, and so I tested it myself. I found a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook. I loaded it into Notebook LM, then asked it to provide one of the recipes, to which it provided a recipe for pot soup.
Wow, really?
So I think there's a legitimate question in that.
Well, pot soup's not in that anarchist handbook?
Oh, it is. It is.
Oh.
And the question I had, the wondering I had was about built-in guardrails.
Oh, for
Safety reasons.
sensory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. I I am confident there are some guardrails, like if you wanted to build a nuclear bomb or something like that, I'm sure there's something somewhere in there. They're built into the chatbots for sure. But I don't think if I download articles about how to commit suicide, it's going to come back and say, hey, here's the suicide prevention hotline. I think, and so I think you're right in that it's a tabula rasa. You could put in there. Wait, if you find content, you can stick it in there. And I don't know that they're involved in the curation at all.
You talked about mental health earlier. I believe it was Northwestern when they released a bot inside of their LMS. If students could interact with the bot to learn about the course. They released for a while and nobody was looking at the back-end data on the prompts that students, like how the students were using. And somebody decided one day, like, somebody needs to look at what the heck is going on. Like, is this really working for the students? To their surprise, they learned that many of the tools they're using supposed to be a learning tool, but they're using to ask questions about how to get help. Uh, when they look at the sentiment analysis of the prompts that students are doing, they have to create a whole system to understand how does the bot respond to the students with the appropriate question. Basically, they created a way that if the students are going there, the bot will say, I believe you need some help. Can I have one of the advisors, someone contact you tomorrow morning or something like that? Or here's some way they can get immediate help if you need. But they didn't think about that until they look at the backend data. But it has been a common path we have heard a lot in several news of people using a platform like this as a companionship or someone who can, a friend to talk to or something like that.
An interesting situation. I'm actually here in Michigan at a different school, and I came in and did a little deal, and the president said, "Can I talk to you when you're done? I've got a question for you." And I thought, like, occasionally I get this kind of questions, and they're wanting to ask me something they don't want their IT department to hear, like, "Hey, if I break this, is anyone going to know?" or something like that. And so, so I finished my thing there, and we went over to the side. He said, "My daughter goes to school at another university, and she broke up with her boyfriend a few weeks ago, and she was very upset. And so my wife and I said, I'm sending an airline ticket, flying on Friday night, spend the weekend with us, and we'll fly you back Monday. We clear it." And he said, we cleared out our schedule. And my wife went to the grocery store and bought her favorite foods. We thought this is going to be a wrap your arms around and love on our weekend. And so she gets in really late on Friday night. They hear her come in and go to bed. They get up the next morning. They fix her breakfast, and she comes down and she's bebopping down. And he said, I was shocked. I was like, "Wow, she looks like in much better shape than I anticipated." And he said, after breakfast, he said, "All right, I'm ready. Let's talk." And she said, "About what?" He said, "You came home so we could talk about you're breaking up with Eric," or whatever the guy's name was that she had broken up with. And she said, Oh, that's okay. I talked to ChatGPT in the airport yesterday while I was waiting. We're good." And you know what the president's question was? Have I been replaced? I have a similar question, not about my children's emotional problems, although I think they're very likely to go to chat for some of this stuff too. But I have a question that involves a red light I pulled up to one day. I lived in my hometown for 35 years and learned to drive there and all that kind of stuff. And I was back there in the summer, and I was going to someone's house that I knew the neighborhood, but I didn't know the house number, so I put it into my GPS. And I got to a red light, and at that red light, Google Maps told me to go left, and I knew for a fact going right is how I've always gone to that neighborhood. So I'm waiting for the red light, and I started thinking, what what Google knows that I don't know? Like, I wonder, do they know there's construction over there, or that it's monitoring people's phones and it realizes there's a slowdown, this is the faster way? Or has it been rerouted in the last few years and I just didn't know about it? And I went left. And so I turned left and I'm going that, and I ended up at the guy's house. But about 20 or 30 seconds after I turned left, I had the thought, what's next? Like, I have a PhD, like maybe all on view. And what is the day, and not Notebook LM, but what is the day that I'm interacting with a chatbot and it tells me something that's counter to something I spent 5 years or 10 years or the last 20 years looking at, and I think, maybe I should go left. You know, maybe it knows things I don't know. Then I had the terrible thought, just further to like another 30 seconds, the thought hit me. Has that already happened in my classroom? Like, if I say something that contradicts something that their recorder on their laptop is listening and it says, you know, actually, blah, 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 are they going to think, Fondren's wrong? You know what I mean? Like, has it happened already for my students? Do they trust AI more than they trust me? And where's the point that I trust it more than I trust me? And I worry about some of those. Those are some of the things that keep me up at night about this. As thinking about credibility and the changing nature of our relationship with information. It's changed. It changed with the internet. It changed with computers. It's changing again. I worry about that. Many other things. I think that gets us to time. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys hanging out and chat with me, and I really enjoyed getting to talk together.
Well, thank you, Dr. Conran. Again, it's great to see the demonstrations of how you're using this and to ask some of these deeper, more probing questions. Really appreciate it. Thanks.